What's up, YouTube, and welcome to the very first episode of Forced Discourse. That's right, in the Star Wars fandom, it's so toxic that we could literally make a video every single week just going over the discourse within the Star Wars community. We're going to do that weekly, talking here. We're not just going to do that, though. We're going to talk about other things Star Wars. We'll talk about episode reviews. We're going to talk about whatever it is, because Star Wars is my favorite thing. It's like my go-to of all the nerd fandoms that I'm into, and this is my little slice of the internet where I get to talk about it. So, but leading this week, we're going to talk about two main things. One of which is going to be the main discourse that we're seeing the last few days, and that is going to be a certain YouTube personality that I'm trying to refrain from using the name of because I don't want to amplify it. Mark Hamill, and kind of the whole idea of AI and deepfake technology. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So if you're unaware, a certain YouTube personality that has found a niche within the community for kind of being anti-sequel trilogy, kind of feeding into the whole what we would call the fandom menace type of stuff, and that kind of like making their bread and butter. This person I've followed for years. I might actually still be subscribed to their channel. I don't know if I've unsubscribed yet. But really my first exposure to them were lore videos a few years ago, like cool dramatic readings of the Vader comic and kind of cool stuff like that. It was only really in the most recent years that we've kind of seen almost like a right-wing grifter, that area that's kind of come into, like, merged with nerd culture. You've got like the Geeks and Gamers channel, you've got heel versus babyface, all these kinds of almost like alt-right channels that masquerade as being kind of nerd culture kind of thing. He's really dipped his toes into that pool, and that's kind of where he's really made his bread and butter over the last, I guess probably a year and a half at least. But recently, he announced a new project. He's done a lot of cool projects over the past few years. I mentioned the Vader comic kind of retellings and dramatic readings, which I used to really like. But he kind of dipped his toes in the water of trying to create this Luke Skywalker series that he was going to kind of base on telling the stories of Luke Skywalker, because, of course, everyone's upset about the way Luke Skywalker was treated in TLJ. We'll probably get, just spoiler alert, I love The Last Jedi. It'll probably come up in multiple weeks because it's always popping up about The Last Jedi. So I'm sure we'll talk about it in other weeks about different things, because there's always a meme popping up and I have to debunk the same things over and over again. But in this particular case, the idea was that he was creating kind of these AI-generated tales of Luke Skywalker. And of course, they were deepfake technology that was using the image of Mark Hamill. And the Tally Stan account, which is a great follow on Twitter, pointed out to Mark Hamill and said, hey, have you approved your likeness to be used in this way? Mark Hamill said no, and that prompted a video response from, we'll say his name just now, Star Wars Theory, in response to that, saying Mark Hamill doesn't like me, and going on and on and on. What I mainly want to talk about, though, in this section of Star Wars Discourse is the response video. And you hear a lot of the same rhetoric that we hear kind of echoed from sequel haters or just kind of like old school Star Wars fans. And something that you hear, and of course there's like a huge dash of misogyny just kind of thrown in there, bringing up that a lot of these women today are these nerdy e-girls or whatever, and that he specifically says that they're just looking for clout or just hopping on the bandwagon, all those kinds of things, which one is completely offensive, but it does echo like a very loud thing that we've heard really since the sequels came out, about kind of like this old head view of Star Wars, really since Disney purchased it. And I've been saying for years, if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably heard me say this, that those kinds of people kind of wish for it to go back to the days when meetings were held in like a airport Marriott ballroom. Nothing was on near as grand of a scale it is now. And it kind of gives the same energy as like, I liked this band before it was cool. And really distilled down, it's just gatekeeping. And gatekeeping in any factor is just not okay, especially in the Star Wars fandom. It's been repeated that it's for everybody and always should be for everybody. So, that's kind of where I stand on that. The whole thing is a little silly, but of course, it's kind of a fine line. I think it's important to call these things out because he's not just a vocal minority. There is a large group of the community. I do think it's smaller than it tends to be, just because that's how the internet works. The tinier voices sometimes get amplified, and then once you get out of the Twitter circle, you realize most of the general public has no idea what is going on with this stuff. But it's a large group, and not just in Star Wars. It's Marvel, it's DC. I mean, the kind of fandoms that we all kind of dabble in, it's kind of slowly becoming more merged into a lot of the same talking points you hear politically, socially, all those kinds of things. So it's important to kind of call it out when it's absurd. And then you tie in all the AI information, the deepfake technology, all those kinds of things. And we're kind of at a crossroads when it comes to that stuff as well. And it all just kind of came to a head this week. And of course, there it is. So let me know in the comments what you think. It's been wild on Twitter the last few days, seeing both sides of the argument. And, frankly, some of the things that have been said on the YouTuber side of this particular YouTuber and his followers and his kind of group has been pretty disgusting. So hopefully, everybody crawls back into the holes and we don't hear about them for a while until the next thing pops off. But let's go ahead and get to story 2. Story 2 is going to be based around a meme that's been popped up. It was actually probably about a week and a half ago in regards to gut stabs within Star Wars. So it all started with this tweet right here. I don't know which side I'm going to put it on, but I'm just going to point to it. Pointing out, the Reva stab and the Sabine stabs on the most recent Obi-Wan series and Ahsoka seasons that came out, and just how a stab to the gut means nothing anymore, how Qui-Gon died, all those kinds of things. And it's important to go over a few things. First, we're going to tackle the Sabine one because I think that's the more easiest one. If you look at the image, she's clearly stabbed, almost misses really, just kind of right to the side here in this kind of part right here. I don't know if you can see that. But it definitely misses like the vital organs, doesn't hit the spine, just kind of hits right here. And really, people survive stuff like that all the time. People get in car wrecks and get, all kinds of things impaled in them and survive. So it could have just missed the vital organ. If you look, they almost did a very purposeful job of framing that shot and showing you where the saber comes out so you can see it's not like dead center like Qui-Gon or whatever. It's off to the side. And Ahsoka was right on the scene. They're right there by the city. Not entirely, there's back to technology. We've seen some crazy stuff in Star Wars. We've seen people survive insane things in Star Wars. Luke getting his arm slapped off and then falling what seems like an endless, I know he falls into a tube, but that would still be a pretty insane impact that he would hit. So we've seen people surviving crazy things. I don't think it's that insane to vision this. But let's go ahead and talk about Reva. And her situation, I think, is a little bit different. She actually survives it twice. Once as a youngling, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the series, I guess. Once as a youngling and then again as an adult. And what I think the important thing when it comes to Reva is her thirst for revenge, her rage is what drives her. She's driven by that. And what we've seen in Star Wars, this lies in perfectly, that rage and kind of that thirst for revenge can really get you through some insane things. We've seen it with Maul. Of course, Darth Maul gets sliced in half, and we see later that he survives purely just running on just feral rage. We've seen that a dark side ability is almost that ability to channel the turmoil, the rage, the anger, and almost sustain yourself. Anakin did the same thing. He should have died instantly on Mustafar, but that rage, that want to kill Obi-Wan or get revenge is what kind of kept his vitals going until someone could help him. So we've seen it, both Anakin and Obi-Wan, significantly worse injuries than what even Reva suffered. So again, it's definitely a dark side power. I don't think light side people have as much of an ability to kind of channel that because they have inner peace. So I think if you see them kind of pass on or become one with the Force. It's definitely a dark side ability that seems to be the ability to kind of channel that inner rage, use it to sustain yourself and heal. So I think that covers that. But, that's pretty much it for this week's Force Discourse. I'll be on Twitter looking at whatever everyone's talking about, and we'll talk about it next week. If you're not already following me on Twitter, follow me at RyCammon7 so you can, retweet, send stuff to me, whatever it may be. I tend to be in the right circles to where whatever's going on, I tend to know about it. So we'll probably talk about it here. But if you got anything you want us to discuss, any questions, I don't always want to have to be doing Twitter beefs on this show, but I just need a place to talk about Star Wars, get ideas out when shows are on. Follow me on TikTok. I do observations on there for all the new stuff all the time, or I'm opening toys, or I'm doing whatever. There's a lot of other cool stuff that I do on there other than just talking about people arguing on the internet. But feel free to check this out. If not, please like this video, subscribe, let me know in the comments what you want us to talk about in the future, and I'll see you guys next time on the Force Discourse.